create the programs that we create in Metropolitan, we don't have the trillion-dollar economy that Southern California is. Southern California, much in part to your work, generates 55% of the state's gross domestic product. Therefore, if we're not here, you're not here, and California is not on the map as the way it is. Let's get that quite clear, right? So it's important to sustain this economy, and this is how we're going to do it. So 19 million people? No, actually it's 20. There's a lot of people that don't participate in the census, okay? Critical. Trillion-dollar economy. I want to remind you that we are still in the drought. The governor has not declared this drought over. That's Lake Mead on the Colorado River system, and that's in its worst situation. Right now, the water line is probably about, I lost something here, but here it is. The water line is probably about halfway, right about here. So it's still low, okay? Situation's gotten better, but I want to remind you we're still in a drought. Unfortunately, in Southern California, you get a little bit of rain on the 10 freeway and everybody thinks the drought's over. That doesn't work that way. The bulk of our water is imported, right? So this is back in 2014, 2013. Look at the snow back in 2013 in January. Look at it back in 2014. Why am I showing you this? Because it's a series of unfortunate events. Anybody see that movie? A series of unfortunate events that brought us to this point. Luckily, if I were to show you a graph, and we're working on getting it for you, the same situation in January 2016, it would be white. And we're very fortunate that that happened. This is what Oroville looked like. This is the state system. This is our reservoir. Look what it looked back in 2011. Look what it looked back in 2014. Today, we're so fortunate that it looks like this again. All right? All right. It looks like that. So what's the problem? I'm going to tell you what the problem is. And it has to do with the Sacramento Delta, and it has to do with the Endangered Species Act, and it has to do with the inability of transporting that water. State of California, Lake Oroville, what I showed you is right up there, right? That's where our system is. This reservoir belongs to the farmers in the Central Valley, all these farmers here and up here. That's their reservoir, and their reservoir is just as full as ours, really packed. Matter of fact, they're releasing water. They're dumping water from Shasta, and the farmers are looking at that water going past them, and they're saying, what are you doing? And the Army Corps of Engineers that control those reservoirs are saying, I have to. Otherwise, my reservoir was built to protect against flood control, but I have to release it. And the farmer's saying, well, you're letting that water go, give it to me. And then the people who control the pumps, not the operator, the United States Fish and Wildlife Services, California Department of Fish and Game are telling them, you can't turn that pump on because there are fish present in the Delta. And the farmer's just pulling his hair out. He's saying, how are you dumping water that I need? Well, it's because we have a series of laws, and we're a nation of laws, and we have to respect it. And so that water is going out into San Francisco Bay instead of going to the farms that produce food. And people say, oh, you know what, they make food, they produce food, and there's plenty of food. But you know what? That food, tomatoes, chilies, corn, they come to Southern California in terms of raw material. And guess what? They're packaged, a lot of our plants here in Southern California, into cans. That's jobs. If you don't bring down tomatoes down here, there's nobody packing them. There's nobody putting them in salsa, all right? So that's domino effect. We are not disconnected from this whole region. We are very much connected. It is one California from Redding all the way up here down to Calexico. One California, one economy. They're both dependent upon each other. Where is the Metropolitan Water District? Right down here. That is us. That's our service area. That's where the 20 million people live. And these are the systems of water that we get. Locally, locally, when it was normal, we would get 2 million acre-feet of water here, 2 million acre-feet from the state, 1.5 million acre-feet from the Colorado, and half the city of Los Angeles. What is an acre-foot of water? An acre-foot of water is enough water for 2 average families in Southern California. What is an average family? 4.3 people. Okay? And what is an acre foot? An acre foot, because we're talking in millions, I'm telling you what one is. An acre foot of water is the Rose Bowl, field from one side to the other, or soccer field too, from one side to the other, all around 1 foot high. That's an acre foot of water, roughly. And we need to have millions of those. And from this system right here, we're not getting 2 million at all. We've been getting, on average, for the last 10 years, 300,000, which is less than 30%, right? It's 15% we've been getting on average. Okay. So, State of California, Metropolitan Service Area, all of that, connection of pipes and so forth, 26 member agencies, right? Again, 19 million people, 4 million acre feet of water needed in this service area annually. That's the demand. Metropolitan, how do we get our water to supply that whole region? 25% comes from the Colorado River. I showed you Lake Mead. 45% is from a local perspective in terms of Los Angeles Aqueduct, groundwater recovery. We clean the water that's contaminated, especially here in the San Gabriel Valley. Recycling, San Jose Creek, all the Sand District recycle water plants. We're number one in the world. The Southern California is number one. Don't let anybody tell you, anybody, in Northern California or anywhere else, that you waste water. Don't let anybody tell you that. We recycle more water in Southern California than anywhere else. Okay? We have more programs. And in a little while, I'm going to show you the proof that you've done a great job. And conservation and desalination. Desalination. Why am I highlighting this? I'm going to tell you why. Because everybody likes to think that desalination is the solution to everything. But guess what? You forget that you live in California. Try to get a building permit. And then try to get a building permit along Malibu. Try to get a building permit anywhere along the coast of Southern California, which is one of the most expensive properties. I don't need to tell you that, right? Try to get a permit to build beyond the Coastal Commission of California. Right? I made my point. It's impossible. It's very difficult. The desalter that San Diego talks about, kudos to them. Very much. Kudos to them. the Metropolitan Water District will sell an acre foot of water, let's say raw, not treated, for about $850 an acre. In San Diego, that desalter they just built, which took them about 12 to 15 years to realize it. In engineering, there's a term called from cradle to grave. I'm a civil engineer. From cradle to grave, the moment they conceptualize it to the moment that they break ground and grand opening. It took them about 15 years to do it. 1 acre foot of water produced at the desalter in Oceanside, and this is not my number, this is the number of the president of the board for the San Diego County Water Authority, who will say it all the time, $2,450. Is it the cure-all? No. Is it something we should proceed? Yes. But then again, try to get a permit from the Coastal Commission. Now, in addition to that, we haven't fully studied the disposal of the byproduct, which is brine. It's highly concentrated acidic water. It's acid. And if you dump it somewhere, you're going to create a kill zone, okay? So let's look at desalters as an option, but not the solution. Plus, I produce it at sea level, and where are we right now? 950 feet above sea level or 900? It's going to cost me money to bring it up to you, right? There's a lot of other engineering concepts associated with it, but it can help, and we're going to have to keep it in the equation. And I have to move faster. I'm going to talk about the Sacramento Delta really quick, and because it's the area where we're facing the biggest concerns right now. It's 30% of our water supply, and I'm showing you this picture because look at the size of this levee. This is actually about a 20 feet high difference in height. Here's another one. This is what's the Sacramento Delta, and these levees are all over this area. Our water comes from up here. The bulk water from the state has to go through this and come to here. This pump, State Water Project pump, Central Valley pump. This is our pump. So it has to flow through here. But I got something else that's flowing in there, fishes. Fishes come in from San Francisco, and they want to go back where they came from, either up here or San Joaquin up here. And they do. And then they spawn. They have their babies. And then the babies are trying to come back out when they're nice and grown as teenagers to get back out. And then the pumps are turned on. And when the pumps are turned on, they want to go this way, but the flow of the pumps makes them go back here. And then there's some bigger fishes who can swim against the current, and they're bright. They're brilliant. They just stand right there and eat them and eat them and eat them and eat them. And the biologists are positioned certain areas around here looking for the fish, because if they see a delta smelt, and you've all heard of delta smelt, but there's other fish that are on the endangered or threatened species, and if they see a certain number or a lack of number, they make a phone call to these guys and say, you got to turn off your pumps. That's how it works. Okay? And that's what we're battling. We're battling this issue right now, and that's why the water's coming down here, and these guys can't pump it out. The Endangered Species Act, the restrictions on pumping are in place. They're about to be lifted for the month of May, and that's when the operators start to release the water so that we can pump. Another picture of the delta for you. See that? The levees again. Again, the levees. When these levees fail, it acts to have a capillary effect. When I was in college, I had a Pinto, and I would take gasoline out of my dad's car. So I get a little hose, right? I'd put one side of my hose in my dad's gas tank. I would suck on the other end of the hose, and I get gas to my car. That's a capillary effect. You're drawing, right? Well, when that levee fails on me, here, the ocean water, the seawater is sucked in. And I cannot pump seawater. It has salt content. I can't treat it, all right? So I have to turn off my pumps as well. So we're worried about those levees as well. We're worried about the fish. We're worried about the levees. We're worried about the content of the quality of the water. And so all these are concerns that we have. The fish population is going down, the levees, there's sea rise, there's seismic concerns, a lot of faults in that area that we're worried about. But we have to come up with a solution. This graph is showing you, like I said earlier, that we've been losing our water supply because of all the concerns in the Sacramento Delta. This graph is showing you the years and the amount of water that fell in terms of water precipitation, and how the percentages that the state has told us you can only get of your 2 million acre feet, which we promise we'll give you, we can only give you 65% of it. We can only give you 35% of it. We can only give you 35%. And this is 2013. In 2014 and 15, it was a lot less. In 2014, it was 5%. Last year, it was 10%. This year, it's up to 45%. Just recently told us it's 45%. But the previous years, 5 and 10, it's terrible. That's just terrible. So it's all going down, and we've been telling everybody it's going down for a reason, and we need to address it, and it's not going to come back up. Now, is it going down because of the rain? Now, some people don't like this graph, and I'm going to show it to you anyways, because I'm here to give you the truth. What is this graph telling you? If you can see it, it's hard to see, but you'll be able to see it over here better. This graph is telling me this is the rain. This is the precipitation in California since 1906 up until like 2010, 2012. Look, rain and drought, rain and drought, rain and drought, rain and drought, rain and drought. You get the pattern? Drought is no surprise to California. So don't act like it's a new thing that came to you. You should be ready. You should be prepared. And Governor Jerry Brown's father saw that back in the 50s. And he said, I'm going to build an aqueduct. And I'm going to have a series of reservoirs along that system. And guess what? I'm going to build a pipeline that goes around the delta. Because my engineers are telling me that if you don't address the problems in this delta, you're going to have some concerns with the fish and the ecology. And back in 1958, on page 168, there's a report called Bulletin Number 3, put by the Department of Water Resources under the direction of Jerry Brown's father, called for something called a Trans-Delta Facility, which later became the Peripheral Canal, which a couple years ago was called the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, and today it's the California Water Fix. And in that same document, there are a series of reservoirs that were never built. We have not built a reservoir in California for 30 years. And the Trans-Delta facility is still conceptualized, and we keep saying no to it. And the reason why And that's the reason why you get this. And it's not because of rain. It's because we didn't do our homework. We have a system in place right now for 30 million people. Actually, it's 28 million people. And we got close to 40. That's not going to work. Not only that, the economy has grown and the demand for water has grown in terms of our farming. It's not going to work. We need to fix it. And I've proven it to you. Don't be surprised when you go home and somebody tells you, the weather's changing. Yes, it's been changing for 100 years. Here it is right here. This is the proof. All right? And I know we're having a big political debate in the world about something, and I'm not going to mention it. Maybe it is happening, maybe it's not happening. But I'm just here to tell you as a scientist, as an engineer, facts. And facts are real stubborn things. Okay? I can send a copy of this, and you can send it to all your members. This is the truth right here. Okay. What did we do at Metropolitan? We have to change our way of thinking. We used to think that, the water from the north and the water from here. No, we have to come up with programs now. Okay? And so this graph is showing you that we've lessened our dependence, and for long term, we want less water from the delta. See that? We're lessening that. Here's the big amount we used to take. Now we're going in this direction. How many minutes do I have? 5 to 10. Okay. So the point I want to make to you on this graph is we're not just sitting there with our head in the sand. We have a big responsibility to you, and we realize that resources are limited, and so is the political will to do the right thing. And we have to make sure that we come up with water supply options like this to meet your requests. And so what we've done is we created programs, conservation and recycling, and we've helped locally to create programs. See, the pie is getting bigger here, and that's our goal. I would love to see this like that, but I can't depend on the politicians in making the right decision, right? And because if I don't do this, 20 years from now, you're going to come to me and say, how come you didn't do the right thing? I'm doing the right thing right now from my perspective. I can only do what I can control, what's in my control. And for my control, this is what I have to do. But I'm still going to move forward in offering a solution to what I showed you. Look at the projects we put in money into it. Your money, your hard-earned money. We put it into it to keep us going. You know, people in Northern California were rationing water 2 years before you were rationing water here because of all these investments. The Diamond Valley Lake, Inland Feeder Project, conservation programs, $352 million. And that was before we added the $450 million this past year. Local resource programs. These are all programs that we've invested money to create water. 810,000 acre feet, almost 1 million acre feet, 2.7. So what I'm trying to show you in this graph is that we just didn't wait. We realized that there's a big hurdle in getting something done to the major system, so we have to work within our own control, and this is what we did. And this is why we sustained our economy, while in Northern California, Porterville has no water, period. People bring water into Porterville. All right? You know, I always tell people my biggest mistake, this is my 30th year at Metropolitan, and my biggest mistake is making sure that when you turn the tap, water's there. In other countries, they'll tell you, at 4 o'clock, there's no water until tomorrow morning at 6. Here, what's the most reliable thing? You have cable. Your cable goes off, and you pay more for your cable. Your gas occasionally goes off once every 4 or 5 years, right? Electricity goes off, more than gas. But does your water go off? Never. And the minute it goes off, you're not being reliable. We are the most reliable utility in Southern California. And the cheapest per unit cost. You pay more for your cable than for water. Look at all the programs we've created and the water as well that we resulted from that. This is the graph I want to show you that you tell your relatives, your friends, anywhere in the country that you have been successful. Look, in 1985, we used to use 205 gallons per capita. Today, you're over here, and you're less than 160. Right now, we're 155, because these numbers, I need to put up the update numbers. We're 155 gallons per capita. I have 6 kids. They never brush their teeth with the water flowing. They don't. They fill a cup, they put it on the side, and I still brush my teeth once in a while with the water flowing. I have to admit it. I still do. And I catch myself. And my kids catch me. They don't. They don't. The mindset. It's just the mindset. And that's part of this. And it's not just in the kids. It's also amongst all of you. We've worked it. We've done it, right? And so we've changed. So don't let anybody in Northern California tell you waste water. Their per capita consumption, city of Sacramento, 210. 210. And look at yours. So you're really wasting it in your swimming pool. I don't think so. All right? We're not. We're really good at water. Can we do more? Yes. How much more? I don't know if we can do much more because you know this term called a low-hanging fruit. When you go to a tree, the easy fruit to pick, then you have to work to get to the higher fruit, right? It takes work. This is the conservation program I talked about, how much money we put into it. Now, this graph is critical. I want to point this out. Look at the amount of water, right here, demand, that we used back in 1985. Close to 4 million acre-feet of water, right? 3.8, right? Look at the amount of water today in 2013-14. The same amount. What's different? I'll tell you what. That's right. Look at the population. 13 million. Today, 19.5 million. We use the same amount of water today with 5 million more people. That's a success story. That's a total success story. And I want you to know that. Okay? Because a lot of people go to Northern California and they kind of feel shy because they think that they're water wasters. You are not a water waster. Hold your head up high. Walk up like a proud peacock when you're in Sacramento. Okay? Final point from a water perspective. This is amazing. This is amazing. I told you earlier this is a $1 trillion economy, 55% of the state's gross domestic product, right? Look at the amount of water we use right here. This is the amount of water that comes to the Metropolitan Water District out of all the water that flows out into the ocean. I have to make quite clear this phrase. This is developed water. Developed water means water that has been channeled or put into a reservoir. Otherwise, it would never have been there if we didn't build the reservoir or build the channels. People forget that. Half of the population in the Central Valley, in the Delta, wouldn't be there if it wasn't for developed water. You know why? Because they would flood every year. Okay? So we use 4%. We use 4% of the whole entire water that comes out of the developed system, right? And look at we send almost half out into the ocean, and upstream usually use that much. We use 4% to sustain this economy. And when I ask for maybe 0.5% more, I'm a real bad guy. It's amazing. It's amazing. I was briefing an elected official here in Southern California about 5 years ago. And when I told him this, he says, that's amazing. These people need to know that our tax base sustains their programs. And I almost cried, because that was amazing. I said, you got it. You got it. Too bad I don't live in your district, but he got it. Sacramento Delta, again, what is my solution to this problem, which has been the solution presented by Governor Jerry Brown Sr., which is supported by Jerry Brown Jr. and supported by the Obama administration. It is something called the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, and we have studied this thing on terms of options. There's a peripheral canal alignment. This is the combination of tunnel and open channel. And this is what we came up with the best, a tunnel going right down the middle, and which is called the California Water Fix. And if we can do this project right here, we don't have the reverse flow issue. I don't have the salt in here. I don't have the worries about the earthquakes. And has anybody been to England and gone from England to France? Well, there's a channel. They call it the channel. And they put bigger things than water in there. And if they can do it, we can do it. 30 miles. 30 miles. There were two, it'd be double barrel, two of them. California Water Fix, 3 gravity flow intakes, 3,000 cubic feet each, state-of-the-art fish screens, 4 bays, 2 gravity flow, 30 miles, 9,000 cubic feet. Here, at this location right now, I have to pump water 220 feet. That's where the reverse flow issue. It would be a closed system. it would have the flexibility of being open and closed. So when they have to pump, they would close some gates and pump out of this forebay. They'd put the water in that forebay and then pump it, and then open it up and fill it again. So it's a tremendous system. Our scientists have studied, our engineers have studied. Now this graph is a little bit outdated, but I wanted to point something out to you. Every year, the average amount of water that should fall in California at this location called the Northern Sierra Precipitation 8-Station Index is about 50 inches. Now this is presented to our board back in mid-March, okay? Right now, this thing is it's over here in April, and it's up here by right there. It's around 54, 55 inches. We've got a lot of water. We've got a lot of water. I was trying to get these updated numbers for you. We have a lot of water, and there's a graph that I want to show you of the reservoir storage in Shasta and Orville. They're full. But interesting enough, these reservoirs are full, but the reservoirs down here are at 1/3. Why? Because you can't pump the water. You can't let the water go from the reservoirs, pump it, and get it to them. There's an hourglass issue in the middle. It's called the Sacramento Delta and the Endangered Species Act. Is the Endangered Species Act bad? No. It's needed. Is it outdated? Editorial comment. I think so. Some people use it to their advantage. Richard Nixon created the EPA, okay? So everybody on both sides of the aisle want to take care of the environment. Some people adhere to it more than others. We need to reevaluate it to make it better. But more important than that, we need to have people on the other side who are looking out for the environment. And you have to respect their cause, right? Because they're looking out for their best interests. But they don't want to be open to any solutions. They're just not open to any solutions, any brick and mortar engineering solutions. It's the special interest of no. And we keep telling them, in your desire, in your fervor to protect the fish, you're killing it. Because the Sacramento Delta wasn't intended to be a series of islands. It was a big marshland. And people wanted to live there. And thanks to developed water, they can live there. But at the same time, it's impacting the ecology, the ecosystem. And we're telling them, we have to stop the flows. We have to stop. You know, the city of Sacramento treats its sewage. And they're in the process now of upgrading it. But before, they would treat their sewage to something called secondary level. We treat our sewage here in Southern California to a tertiary level before we dump it out in the ocean. Sacramento treats it to a secondary level and dumps it in the Delta. And guess what? I pump that water and I bring it down here. Now they're going to have to upgrade it to a third level. That sewage impacts the fish. The use of the Delta impacts the fish. There's many factors that are impacting the fish. All right, so the point there is that water supply is high. This final graph, I think I can finish on this one. I told you that about 48% of the water supply that's developed goes out into the ocean, and rightfully so, it needs it, okay? But there's additional water supply that has been going to the ocean, and it's been happening through the courts. These are called biological opinions by the courts in lawsuits. And they started back in 2008, and moving forward. What I did here is I added on, it's a cumulative bar graph, all the amount of water that's moving out to the ocean in addition to that amount that I showed you earlier. And over the course of the last 6-7 years, it's close to 4.5 million acre-feet of water. We've given them, guess where that comes from? It comes from our 4%, it comes from the farmers' 17%. They take it from those incrementally. This system is broken. I mean, I don't know how much we have to point out to these people that this is going to continue like that. And as it continues going like that, we're going to continue to go down like this from an economic perspective. Okay? So this is the California water fix. Our cost is $15 billion. Who's going to pay for it? The users primarily. Metropolitan users will pay for 25% of that.